At a point in time, this South African company owned Ackermans, Hi-Fi Corp, Incredible Connection, John Craig, Pep, Refinery, Russell, Redlow's, Techie Town, and all these other brands. This sounds unbelievable, right? Get this. This very same company had a revenue of 263 billion rands. They were the Berkshire Hathaway of South Africa, the LVMH of South Africa, ruthlessly expanding and buying out companies, bringing them under their umbrella of companies. They were even in negotiations trying to buy Shoprite as well. But then, within a space of 2 weeks, they lost almost 90% of their company's value in the stock exchange, a feat that has never been seen before here in South Africa. The news hit the headlines, national headlines, international headlines, from Johannesburg to Frankfurt. Everyone was talking about this company called Steinhoff Holdings. Gigantic banks like Absa, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and JP Morgan Chase all took damage in the billions of rands due to this company's collapse. Just when you thought it can't get any bigger, BlackRock, the biggest investment company in the world, lost billions of rands as well. The ripple effect of the collapse of Steinhoff was so massive that in 7 days of trading, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was hit by losses totaling about 295 billion rands. That is an equivalent of 8% of South Africa's GDP. For those who don't know what the significance of GDP is, it's basically used to measure a country's economy and the health of a country's economy basically. So just imagine, in a single week, the collapse of this one company wiped out an amount equal to 8% of the value of South Africa's economy at that specific time. This entire story really blew my mind and caught my attention recently when my homie and partner in handling this channel told me we should actually look up this story and look up the story of the man behind this legendary rise and equally legendary collapse of this gigantic company, because allegedly this man is part of the Stellenbosch mafia. So let's visit the early days of this company and try to understand exactly where things went wrong in the timeline. The main character of today's story, Markus Johannes Jooste, was born on the 22nd of January in 1961, a South African businessman and a former CEO of the company Steinhoff International. In 2016, Markus was on the list of Africa's richest people with a net worth of $400 million. But that's just the peak, some of you may know. The story doesn't begin there. My aim on today's video was to truly find out, where does the alleged member of the Stellenbosch mafia actually come from, and where did he gain the skills needed to pull off such an unbelievable feat in the business world. Markus trained as an accountant in his 20s, which led to him being appointed as the financial director of a publicly listed company. At the age of 27, he became the financial director of Goma Goma, where he met the German businessman Klaus Daum. This man called Klaus Daum is said to be the one that coached him and basically showed him the ropes in the business world. Because of the bond that developed in this relationship, in 1998, Markus Jooste was able to convince Klaus Daum to merge his business with the business of Bruno Steinhoff in Europe. Bruno Steinhoff is a German billionaire who created Steinhoff International in 1964. So when this merger happened, Steinhoff had been around for 3 decades already, but it wasn't the global titan that you know today. After Daum and Bruno Steinhoff merged their companies, the new Steinhoff International was then listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And guess what happened next? Markus Jooste was rewarded with a seat as an acting non-executive director of the company. Because of this elevation, Markus Jooste's doors had finally opened, and the opportunity was right there in front of his hands. He could finally get a chokehold, and that's exactly what he did. He quickly ascended to the position of Chief Executive Officer by the year 2000. That's just a space of 2 years after the big merger. Markus had a game plan, because in his role as CEO, he instantly got moving. He built Steinhoff through numerous acquisitions, from a small furniture manufacturer to a large corporation in the furniture industry. He made the company the second largest furniture manufacturer in Europe after IKEA. Another thing that made Markus Jooste a mastermind was his ability to know who to hire and when to hire them. In 2002, he brought Piet Ferreira, a brilliant former investment banker. This move was very instrumental in the structuring of Steinhoff International's public offerings and their very complex acquisitions. Markus' first notable acquisition as CEO of Steinhoff was Conforama in 2011. Get this, they bought it for 1.2 billion euros. This deal boosted Steinhoff revenues and accelerated the growth plans that Markus was planning to mastermind. The company called Conforama might sound familiar to some of you because this is the company that sponsors the French Ligue A before Uber Eats bought the deal. From 2014, Markus Jooste and Steinhoff International made acquisitions in South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the United States. They literally made a massive acquisition of mattress firm for a whopping $2.4 billion and also Poundland for £597 million. Just seeing these numbers is really sending chills down my spine. The move that led to buying Poundland is the one that really caught my eye, because they went into this one like vultures that have been waiting for their prey to lose consciousness. Poundland was caught in a depressed retail conditions, so Markus Jooste saw this opening and and he ruthlessly went with Steinhoff and they made the acquisition. The purchase of mattress firm is where Markus Jooste finally started to fumble and show some cracks. The purchase was so massive that it led to scrutiny from independent analysts. The financial press initially ascribed the growth in Jooste's empire to good luck or either perfect timing, but the dissenting voices started to grow silent as Steinhoff brought in 36% growth in its 2014-2015 reporting year. Oh my friends, this was just the beginning. Markus Jooste shares the same traits as Bernard Arnault in that they constantly want growth. Markus was still hungry to see more growth for Steinhoff, and so in March 2015, Steinhoff shocked everyone when they bought Pepco from Wyss and his braid holding company for 63 billion rands, and that's around 4.8 billion euros at that point in time. The purchase of Pepco started to really scare a lot of people. A lot of well-known brands here in South Africa fall under the umbrella of Pepco. Pepco alone brought in a revenue of 4.53 billion euros recently. Yes, billion with a B. The retail brands owned by Pepco include Pep, Ackermans, Shoe City, Duns, Techie Town, Refinery, SPCC, Code, Breadlows, Rochester, Sleepmasters, Incredible Connection, Hi-Fi Corp, and Buco. This is the company that Markus Jooste brought under the fold of Steinhoff International. Do you guys now understand why I say this was truly a scary acquisition in the South African business world? The hunger and aggression from Markus was getting so out of hand that in 2016, he went on to try and purchase Shoprite, but the deal failed. Markus Jooste and Wyss managed to raise some money in 2017 with one goal in mind. One big goal motivated by greed. They wanted to split off Pepco's South African division, which raised a lot of red flags, because it was seen as a way for Steinhoff to pay off the money it owed in South Africa. The massive purchase of Pepco itself raised suspicions at the FSB about Jooste and the Steinhoff team allegedly using insider trading to have perfect timing when going in for the deals. Insider trading is basically what Bobby Axelrod does on Billions whenever he wants to crush the competition and sweep the rug right under their feet.
I'll make sure to take a sizable allocation.
So you'd have cover?
Yeah, take the free money up front.
Bobby Axelrod always knew what to do and when to do it when it came to purchasing companies because he used insider trading. The split of Pepco meant that 71% holding would be in the new entity called Star, which managed more than 5,000 South African stores, way more than any other retailer. At the peak of its power, Steinhoff's share price went all the way up to as high as 90 rands per share in 2016, making it the 15th largest company listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The conglomerate employed over 130,000 people on 5 continents and had become the second largest home goods retailer in Europe after, of course, IKEA. Everything seemed like roses and sunshine, but where this all took a turn is when on the 4th of December 2015, Steinhoff announced that Oldenburg authorities had carried out a raid on its European headquarters in Germany in order to review the company's balance sheets and treatment of transfers to its subsidiaries or third parties. Days later, on the 7th of December, Steinhoff International transferred its primary listing from Johannesburg to Frankfurt. As in Jooste's words, the majority of Steinhoff stores, customers and revenues were in Europe. Markus Jooste has always been so good that he painted this entire situation as an important day in the history of Steinhoff, despite he himself not leaving Cape Town. I guess he really loved being part of the elite allegedly known as the Stellenbosch Mafia. Manager magazine revealed in August 2017 that Jooste was one of the managers being investigated in Germany. Prosecutors suspected that inflated revenues in the 100 million euro range may have been reported on the balance sheet of subsidiaries. Handelsblad reported in November 2017 that investors had become very worried because Markus Jooste had created a system where he was trusted to a point that it was hard to get any transparency out of him. What really led to Jooste's downfall was the infamous Panama Papers. If you are a curious person like myself, then you have heard this thing called the Panama Papers. I'm willing to bet that most of you don't even know what the Panama Papers actually are. So let's try and explain this matter. The Panama Papers are a giant leak of more than 11.5 million financial and legal records that expose a system that enables crime, corruption, and wrongdoing hidden by secretive offshore companies. This was huge. Many of the wealthy elite all over the world were exposed, and guess what? Markus Jooste was allegedly one of them. How the story actually goes, the Financial Mail journalists aided by the Panama Papers alleged that Markus had secret stakes in these daughter companies before they were formally entered into the Steinhoff fold, and also the fact that they were acquired at premiums to their value. They proposed that this network of front-running companies would have been set up and operated by George Allen Evans and Malcolm King. It's like Markus Jooste was dating both the customer and the saleswoman, profiting from both sides of the deal. But hey, I'm just sharing information I found on the internet. So let's just say allegedly. A company called PwC was given the task of investigating possible accounting irregularities or non-compliance with the laws and regulations. Now understand this, when PwC gets involved, we are talking about the big guns, because PwC is the second largest professional services network in the world, and they are considered as one of the big 4 accounting firms in the world alongside Deloitte, EY and KPMG. 2 of the 4 biggest accounting firms were both after Markus Jooste's empire, namely Deloitte and the above mentioned PwC. German prosecutors confirmed in December 2017 that they were still investigating 4 current and former managers of a group identified in the German press as Steinhoff for accounting fraud. Steinhoff announced in February 2018 that they had submitted a report on Markus Jooste to the Hawks on suspicions of fraud for investigation and potential prosecution. The man was allegedly literally thrown under the bus when the heat was turned up on the company. Christo Wyss' Titan Group instituted a claim of 59 billion rands against Steinhoff conglomerate to recover cash investments made in 2015 and 2016. The prospects of this claim are however complicated by the fact that Wyss had been Steinhoff director since 2013. Wyss had a 22% share in Steinhoff basically, so those claims really didn't make any sense. On the 4th of December 2017, Steinhoff Holding disclosed that it would release unaudited annual statements, and the next day Markus Jooste resigned his position as CEO amid allegations of fraud and corruption. Soon after, he also resigned from Phumelela Gaming and Leisure, Kenilworth Racing and Mayfair Speculators. Markus also submitted his resignation as a chartered accountant, but the South African Accounting Board rejected it, preferring instead to suspend him pending the outcome of disciplinary proceedings. Things took a turn for the worst when news broke that Markus Jooste was being investigated in Germany for fraud. This led to a very nasty response in the market. Steinhoff's price dropped by 16% on the JSE, but it recovered after the company denied the allegations. You know what we do in order to maintain the image and maintain the share price. This was followed by allegations of accounting misconducts made by Steinhoff's former POCO subsidiary. Steve Boysen also alerted the board to possible accounting irregularities after engagements with Deloitte. Jooste's December 2017 resignation as CEO of Steinhoff came out to everyone as the company literally admitting to those accounting irregularities, and they announced that they had approached PwC to conduct an investigation into these matters. Chairwoman Heather Sun revealed later that Steinhoff's proprietary electronic records had been destroyed, which complicated their investigation. In a letter to staff members explaining his resignation, Jooste apologized for big mistakes. In an SMS sent on the 6th of December to former Steinhoff director Joe Grove, Jooste supposedly admitted that he had tried to cover up the impact of losses incurred by Steinhoff's American assets, but that is allegedly on my end. Viceroy Research immediately tweeted a link to its 37-page report which detailed how Steinhoff had allegedly used off-balance sheet entities to obfuscate losses and inflate earnings. Between the 5th and the 7th of December, Steinhoff's share price fell even further from 46 rands to, wait for it, 10 rands. Christo Wyss Uppington Investment Holdings held over 30% of Steinhoff's stock price and was the biggest loser in the collapse. South Africa's PIC was holding 7%. Coronation and the infamous company that controls the world called BlackRock all made multi-billion rands in losses. The European Central Bank sold its Steinhoff bonds after they depreciated by 50%, while JP Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup and Goldman Sachs all reported substantial losses. Lenders were owed over $10.6 billion, but in June 2018 the majority was persuaded to a debt standstill and insolvency was avoided. This was soon labeled as the biggest corporate scandal in South African history and the biggest corporate crash in the history of our country. As a result of Markus Jooste's resignation, $11.4 billion was wiped off the value of the global furniture and clothing retailer. That's more than 3 times the net worth of Patrice Motsepe. It is really wild for a company to lose that kind of money, honestly. This in turn had a ripple effect on several other companies in South Africa, including the Steinhoff subsidiary Steinhoff Africa Retail, or known shortly as STAR. This firm may have actually helped Steinhoff and it may have guaranteed some of Steinhoff's debt. In 7 days of trading, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was hit by losses totaling about 295 billion rands, which is equivalent to 8% of South Africa's GDP, as I said earlier. Steinhoff's share price didn't stop there. It then further dipped to a staggering 4 rands. Just imagine that. This price fell from literally 95 rands. Now it went all the way down to 4 rands. By late December, Steinhoff shares were on the brink of collapse as management could not ascertain the magnitude of accounting irregularities or provide provide assurances concerning individual company cash flows. Steinhoff, however, won approval to roll over 690 million euros of its financing, and its US subsidiary mattress firm secured a loan of $225 million from Barclays Bank. Steinhoff also sold PSG shares worth 4.7 billion rands to increase liquidity. When Markus Jooste appeared before South African members of parliament in September 2018, he denied any knowledge of any accounting irregularities in Steinhoff's part. He stated that Deloitte's independence became compromised in Steinhoff's dealings with a man called Andreas, causing him to recommend appointment of new auditors and the delay of the release date of audited results to the end of January 2018. Basically, he allegedly keeps stalling and using more frauds to cover up another fraud. Jooste stated that from 2015 onwards, this man called Andreas managed to convince German authorities to conduct various tax investigations into Steinhoff. Markus said this guy was attempting to manipulate public prosecutors, capital market regulators, and the press to gain information on Steinhoff, so the outcome of the ongoing civil litigations between Andreas and Steinhoff in 3 countries could be affected. Basically, what was happening here is Markus Jooste was saying Andreas happened to be his enemy, and he was coming hard for everything with the names Markus Jooste or Steinhoff linked to it. He wanted to completely crush Jooste. On the 4th of March 2021, German prosecutors in Oldenburg revealed that Markus Jooste and 3 others had been secretly charged 4 months earlier, the first indictments from the German investigations. One thing about Markus Jooste is the fact that he was known for his lavish spending, which is another thing that was allegedly a giveaway that he was up to some shady business. They say he was giving himself a monthly salary of 2.5 million rands. In October 2015, Jooste allegedly treated some Stellenbosch colleagues, of course it's Stellenbosch, well, it's always Stellenbosch. He allegedly treated some Stellenbosch colleagues, friends and associates to a lavish excursion to the semi-final of the Rugby World Cup at Twickenham Stadium, which is estimated to have cost Steinhoff shareholders around 84 million rands, all just to watch the Rugby World Cup, bro. The Steinhoff international financial fraud resulted from intercompany loans that misrepresented the profits they made. Steinhoff owns numerous retail brands, so they moved money through intercompany loans to inflate the parent company's numbers. They used intercompany loans to increase revenues into decreased expenses. Markus Jooste didn't display signs of corruption. He was a charismatic CEO with an aggressive management style, as I said earlier. He had similar characteristics as Bernard Arnault, the current richest man in the world, or last time I checked is number 2 behind Elon Musk. They just keep on changing. Bernard Arnault is the most ruthless billionaire amongst those I have come across on the Forbes list. He always came in very aggressive when he kept acquiring all the companies that are currently known to be under the LVMH banner. Like, literally look at those companies, bro. That list is unbelievable. There is a very popular story about how he launched an aggressive offensive in order to acquire Gucci and bring it under the LVMH banner, which already had Louis Vuitton, Moet, Tiffany & Co., Christian Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, Marc Jacobs, Stella McCarthy, Loro Piana, Kenzo, Celine, Sephora, Princess Yachts, Tech Heuer, and Bulgari. This is a very scary list. These men acquired all these companies in a very ruthless and aggressive takeover style. The reason why I draw comparisons between this man and Markus Jooste is because Jooste is known for allegedly timing his takeovers perfectly and going in very aggressively no matter the amount of money the targeted company shareholders demand. During his time with Steinhoff International, Jooste was highly regarded and believed to be very successful. No one challenged Markus Jooste. The reason why people didn't challenge him is because he was good at his job. Obviously, part of him being good or appearing like he was good at his job was because he was allegedly committing this fraud. But it's a weird thing that kind of unfolds on itself, where you are finding success through a fraud, so you have to continue committing that fraud to maintain the appearance of success. It's a serious ripple effect that eventually leads to your downfall. There's really kind of this vortex that sucks you in on so many different types of frauds that it's really unbelievable. Markus Jooste appeared to be running the company well, but part of the reason was because the company's overstated profits and hidden losses. Jooste and the other executives allegedly committed financial fraud for over 8 years, so the company's appearance of success largely resulted from corporate fraud. This is truly a fascinating story, one that really blew my mind, but we couldn't make it too long because it would have taken more than a week to complete. But who knows what the future holds? Someday we might get into making a longer video regarding this matter.